Okay, yeah, I believe you can see my full screen now. Is that right? Uh, okay,
Yep,
welcome.
all good.
Yeah, all good. Yeah, okay. Welcome everybody. Yeah, my session today is how to protect servers with Defender for Endpoint. I'm Jackson Felden, colleagues from Sakaldeep and Carl, and I'm working as a senior cloud consultant at Avanade. And then my day-to-day is to implement and protect enterprise clients with whatever you can. We can. I've been working with Defender for Endpoint, yeah, pretty much every single week, every single day of my life for the last the last 2 years. And then a part of running projects, I've been recording some videos as well. I'm a Microsoft MVP on security and Azure. And yeah, if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, just search for me, Jackson Felden. And it would be great if you could have a look on my channel and subscribe. Jackson, yeah, just search for Jackson Felden. You should be able to find me in there. And yeah, really happy and thanks very much for the invitation for me to be here. And the plan now in the next around 1 hour is to share a bit of my experience when it comes to how to protect servers. First, a quick intro in regards to the today's challenge when protecting servers. And then I will start talking into the Defender for Endpoint, and especially everything will be focused on servers. Actually, I'm running a project at the moment, or for the last few months, complex enough, and whatever I will bring today in information is 100% based on real life challenges I'm facing on my day-to-day when supporting this client. And then I will talk about the different ways to do the onboarding when it comes to servers. Is a bit more challenging, especially for server 2012 and 2016. And then I will talk another method to do the onboarding via Defender for Cloud as well, eventually, if you want to go to that journey. And then a few key settings. Of course, if I start exploring all the AV and EDR settings one by one, probably we will stay up to tomorrow lunchtime. But I took, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 very key ones for me to share, again, based on my day-to-day experience. And then some interesting information in regards to doing the migration on the project I've been running. I, not only myself, let's say the team, we build a really robust onboarding process. And so far, yeah, we have onboarded thousands of devices, and everything is going really well. And then I want to share a bit of process I created. And the last one, overcoming some challenges as well. Again, based 100% on my day-to-day. I will give you some, at the end, some important tips when you are about, or if you are already implementing servers, a couple of things you should look straight away at the beginning of the project to avoid any delays and any headaches, or at least to minimize the headaches when dealing with servers. Anyway, before I start, yeah, there you go. I've been recording that zero Defender for Endpoint from zero to hero. In total now, I have around, I think, 30 videos about Defender for Endpoint. And then these are, I haven't counted now, maybe 15 or 12, specifically with all demos and step-by-step. If you want to do a kind of deep dive into Defender for Endpoint on top of the presentation today, it would be nice for you to have a look and then follow the recordings. I have much more to come. Anyway, let's get started. When it comes to, probably this is not new for you, when it comes to the challenges everybody's facing, not only when protecting servers, but when protecting workstations as well. These numbers all come from Microsoft. There are around 7 million unique threats emerging per hour. And then it means if you are using, or if your company or your clients are using old traditional on-prem AV and EDR, probably that is not dynamic enough for the threats available today. Another very important thing is the 46% of the compromised systems, they don't have malware at all. And then based again on my experience when I was testing some Linux, even if we disable the AV, on Linux, and I did that on Windows as well. And then I try to run a fileless script. It means I'm not talking about a .com or .exe, just a script any end user could run. Interesting enough, it means with the AV disabled, the Defender for Endpoint was still able to catch and to block that script based on the EDR, where I will explain a few seconds as well. It means the Defender for Endpoint has different layers of, I could say different layers of protection. And of course, depends the case, as I was explaining, the the AV was down, but the EDR was still able to totally block that malicious thing. Another one, interesting enough, 50 to 60% of the attacks, especially when it comes to ransomware, they come via macros and scripts. This is why it's so important for any organization to enable the ASR, the attack surface reduction rules, and then from those rules there are 16 in total. And there are some specific ones we can turn on to avoid, for example, the Office applications, Word, Excel access in creating child processes. And from those child processes is where the hackers, they inject some PowerShell scripts or some VB scripts and so on. And then by the time we enable those rules to avoid macros in script, we can, in theory, based on Microsoft numbers, we can reduce the attacks, by 50 or even 60%. It's not new for anybody. A huge spike on the ransomware attacks, especially, I got this graphic here. It started, getting really bad in 2020, 2021, as you can see, was the peak of the ransomware attacks. And now on 2022, 2023, things are a little bit, I wouldn't say better, but the line came down a little bit. But anyway, don't need to tell you, any slip on the configuration can cost, the organization to be attacked and fully controlled by those bad actors. It's very challenging when dealing with the customers and, for us as a consultant and to helping the customers as well, to keep up with all this is not new, all the changes happening on the Microsoft landscape, happening on the firewall proxy, on all the cybersecurity. And this is why it's better to try to specialize in some of the tools. In my case, I've been working really hard on all the Defender family, Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Cloud, Defender for, whatever is the Defender, Defender for Identity, and so on. And then have the right people with the right skills working together in order to be able to kind of, protect the organizations the best way we can. Another challenge, actually, everybody's facing these days, especially for large organizations. Of course, they have plenty of automation scripts in order to run backups, in order, to do different things. And large organizations, they use quite a lot PSExec. Not sure if you came across that. Is a really useful tool when it comes to automation. But on the other hand, PSExec is a very well-known and very, let's say, useful tool for bad actors in order to inject scripts and to take over the network. And then one of the challenges is when implementing Defender for Endpoint is to identify what are the good PSExec scripts running and what are the bad ones. Because via ASR, we can enable, there is a specific rule to block the PSExec, but if we block, maybe half of the company automation is gone. And then to try to find the balance where we still allow the automation to work, but we need to be able to block, or the system needs to be able to block a malicious script. Is a bit of headache for us to find the right balance. And then again, there are so many other ones, but these are some of the, on my understanding, on my view, some of the important ones. And then, of course, the key thing is how can we basically overcome or try to mitigate all of those day-to-day challenges. This is what Microsoft has been working now really hard for the last, for the last bunch of years. And Microsoft initially was a company providing software and so on, and operating system. Now became the most powerful security company in the globe. And all the tools they have, there are basically more than 50. It is the same picture I have, behind me. more than 50 different category products. Those products are Defender for Identity, they are Pure View, don't need to tell the name. In those products, they were, those categories, they were packed into 6 different product line. And then today, what I'm going to talk is one of the Microsoft Defender family product. There are Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Servers, Defender for Identity, Defender for IoT. I think there are around 10 or even more of them. And today, I'm going to talk specifically about Defender for Endpoint. And what I've been kind of doing on my day-to-day is removing third-party AV like Symantec. On my previous project, I help a client migrating from McAfee to Defender for Endpoint. Now Symantec, migrate from Symantec to Defender for Endpoint. Why? Because the clients are seeing what are the benefits from Defender for Endpoint. One of them that comes straight away in my mind, and I ask this question for the client I've been working is, why you guys move to Defender for Endpoint? And one of the advantages they pointed out was the integration with all the other Microsoft tools. If I want to have Defender for Endpoint integrated with Defender for Identity, with Defender for Cloud Apps and Sentinel and so many other Microsoft products, you don't need to develop an API. You don't need to establish any kind of crazy configuration. Most of them is pretty much a click. Just, there are built-in connectors. I want to connect Defender for Endpoint with Intune. Yeah, enable that feature. I want to connect the Defender for Endpoint with Defender for Cloud Apps. Another click where you turn on and job done. Don't need to kind of spend maybe days or have a project in terms of integrating my AV with, whatever is the other product. That's a really interesting, massive benefit, I would say, for the client. And then Microsoft designed Defender for Endpoint based on 6 different pillars, I could call. The first one, really nice, is the threat and vulnerability management. Another big advantage for the clients is instead for them to use multiple third-party tools, if I want to have a picture to understand what is the security score, what is the server exposure level, and all of those things, instead to pay a vendor for that, like Rapid7, and there are some other third-party tool, this is now built into Defender for Endpoint. And the big advantage, especially for the analysts from the SOC team, when they are doing all the analysis from the alerts and incidents, in the same interface, they can see, this device here has, I don't know, there are 5 missing patches. Maybe, somehow the patches since January, they haven't been deployed, terrible. We can see from there. They can click on another tab, or the cybersecurity team can click on another tab and straight away to see what are the security recommendations for that server with multiple alerts and so on. Everything I will show you in a single interface. The next one, as I already was saying, is the attack surface reduction. As the name suggests, the idea here is to, via different configuration, we can reduce the way the hackers can get in. Let's say disable PSZAC, disable Acrobat Reader in creating a child domain, disabling Office in creating child domains. All of those things used by hackers, we can eventually start turning on to block those entry, I could call. Of course, sometimes we enable and we block those entries and we can break an automation. Then we need to find the right way, identify what is the automation, and then make the exclusions. The next one is the AV, and actually this is a common mistake out there. People think Defender for Endpoint is an AV solution. And as you can see in here, of course, it's an AV that will, have real-time monitoring and so on, block bad files and scripts and so on. But the AV is just one of the pillars that protects the devices. Another one, and actually these two, they work, really close. Here is the AV. Here is all about behavior monitoring. It means if there is an app, could be Word, could be Excel or whatever, that Microsoft start analyzing what is the day-to-day pattern for that application in terms of amount of memory, amount of CPU, the way the application runs in a day-to-day. And from there, Microsoft has a understanding based on machine learning and based on artificial intelligence as well. Eventually, if that application now, out of the blue is uploading loads of files or gigs of data to an unknown source, and that application never done that before, of course that's a red flag, and thanks to the EDR, or the endpoint detection and response, we will be notified, and some bad things will be blocked automatically based on all of this intelligence running automatically. Talking about automatically things, that one is really nice, especially for enterprises with maybe dozens or hundreds and hundreds of alerts every day. We can configure Defender for Endpoint to do the analysis. Even if there is a bad, I don't know, malware or something, Microsoft blocks that execution. If Microsoft is not there is any tiny chance where something was left behind, maybe a registry key was changed, maybe something was injected into the system, the automated investigation kicks automatically, or kicks in, do a full second verification in all the files, registry key, in all the system, and then reverts things back if needed. The good thing is we can configure Defender for Endpoint to automatically to close the alerts. Because, if Microsoft blocked something, a malware, Microsoft did the verification, nothing was left behind, nothing was changed. There is no additional work for an analyst to go there and, do all the analysis for, maybe informational risk level alerts, for low risk level alerts, and so on. Those can be closed fully automatically. And then the analyst, the SOC team can concentrate on the the big fishes, like the medium or the high alerts as well. All the configuration we can do. And after that, if it's still a bit of doubt in regards to some a tricky alert, if the company is not too sure about that, we can open, it's not really open a ticket, is basically engage with the Microsoft threat experts. Actually, I've done that a couple of times just to play extra safe with the client. And then we just provide what's the ticket, the alert ID. And then Microsoft with the experts, they go there, do a deep dive analysis, and then eventually they come back with whatever is the recommendation. But so far I haven't come across where the system slipped in, I don't know, any action, and the Microsoft experts, they came and, oh yeah, we need to change the configuration, or based on my experience for the last 2 or 3 years has been great. And maybe twice or 3 times when I talked to the threat experts was just to reassure to double check whatever the decision we took was fine. Anyway, this is why Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is becoming more and more and more popular, not only for workstations but for servers as well, because we have all of those 6 pillars, those technologies working together. When it comes to licensing, I really don't like to talk about license, but it's a little bit different from the workstations, from servers. In the license for servers, it's pretty much paper. There is nothing, you go into the portal, oh yeah, let's add a license for server and so on. But of course, you need to be compliant. If you have, I don't know, 200 servers or 2,000 servers, before it doesn't block you to do the onboarding, but to avoid any headache with Microsoft, make sure you have the license in that buy the license, and then start onboarding the servers. Okay, let me just pause, and then I need to give you some tips when it comes to the server onboarding. But before that, if I just, if you are new into the portal, this is the place where the magic happens. Go into the security.microsoft And then in here, if I click on devices, yeah, these are all the onboarded devices. I have, as you can see, a mix between Server 2019, 16, some workstations. Here, straight away, I can see what is the risk level from all of those servers, the exposure level as well. Exposure level means, if there is a service pack that was not installed, maybe there are 5 applications running on that server, and they are running, there are some patches not installed on those servers. Maybe Microsoft detected vulnerabilities on, I don't know, Firefox, and Firefox actually is running on that server. All of those things means the exposure level is kind of, getting wider. And from here, we can measure. I can see if the servers are active or passive. And then if I just click in one of the random servers here, let me get that 2019. Now I can do a deep dive into that server. If there is anything dodgy happening on that server, I could, just click. Yeah, it's still coming. Yeah, there are, a couple of options in here. As I was telling you, when I'm doing the analysis, sometimes helping the SOC team, I always, if there is a server with a couple of alerts, I always click on the missing KB. And yeah, as you can see, I haven't installed the latest Tuesday patch on my server, and then the system, catch from here. Very interesting as well, especially to guide the cybersecurity team, is in regards to the security recommendations. This is part of the TVM, threat and vulnerability, and then yeah, from here, yeah, it's not looking, that bad. Just running behind that, that server. I have a better one here. Let me get a 2016, I think, on purpose. I didn't fully configure that server 2016. I think this is a good example. Let me try that one. And then let me secure. Yeah, I think that's the place. Yeah, oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, as you can see, and then here, if my security score or exposure score is not looking that great, here is the reason. Okay, I haven't enabled the temper protection on that server, and then as you can see in here, all of the other recommendations are because I haven't installed the ASR rules, the attack surface reduction rules. This is why, all the block all Office application from creating child processes, block JavaScript, all of those things I haven't configured. And then the system here is telling me, I should configure to bring this server to a better position. If something are not great on that server, I can click on those 3 dots, and then from here I could, in a single click, isolate that server. Isolate means Defender for Cloud, the portal will inject some local firewall configuration to block this server in communicating to anything. The only rules, the only communication that is still in place is the communication between the server and, of course, the backend Defender for servers, for me, when the time is right, for me to revert the configuration. I could force a full scan, and here I could start an automated investigation. I'm not going to read, everything, but there are some really interesting controls in here. So a couple of times I use this option, collect investigation package, really nice. By the time I click on that option, we will get logs from everything that's running memory, the software installation, the logs from Defender for Endpoint. And a few times when we were not too sure in regards to a server, again, just to play extra safe, we took that investigation, and then we open a ticket to Microsoft and send to a kind of just a second opinion in there as well. But in order for us to have the servers here fully protected, getting the power from the cloud, from what I was saying, artificial intelligence, machine learning, behavior analytics, and all of those things, we need to onboard the servers. And then talking about the onboarding is a little bit different when we are talking about Server 2019 and Server 2012 and 2016. As you can see, the Server 2019 has the AV and the EDR built in. This is why there is no client to be installed on servers. We just run a onboarding script, just a CMD file, and job done. And I haven't been getting any headache at all when I'm onboarding Server 2019. When it comes to Server 2012 and 2016, it's a little bit different. As you can see, the Server 2012 first, there is no built-in AV and there is no built-in EDR. This is why we need a piece of software. We need a client to install on that guy. Server 2019, there is a built-in AV, the Defender, the local Defender, but there is no EDR. This is why, in order to onboard those servers, there are, let's say, two different paths. On Server 2012 and 2016, let me just, if I can, yeah. On Server 2012 and 2016, first, we need to install the installation package. It's just a MSI file. If I have good memory, I think 120 megs you need to install. And then when the client is installed to support the AV and the EDR, and then we do the onboarding script. For Server 2019, as I told you, we don't need to run any sort of software, just run the onboarding script and then job done. If you are wondering how can you install the package and run the script, it's pretty much totally up to you. There are different ways to do that. I tested, I think, pretty much all of them via local script, via grow policy, system center, configuration manager, and so on. The starting point actually is here. If I go back to the portal, into the settings, if I click in there, and then in here, if I dive into the endpoints, click in there, and then finally, if I click on onboarding, click in there, here is everything what you need. In my case, I want to onboard a server 2012 or 2016, click in there. Now I just need to select what's the method, and let's say I want to do via grow policy. Okay, click on grow policy and then install the package. That's that MSI file, 120 megs or 130, and then the onboarding script. And yeah, now it's up to you if you want to run that installation manually or if you want to put in the system center and so on. Yeah, look the difference. If I now select server 2019, and then I don't need, as I just told you, I don't need to install the client because everything is built in. Much easier. I just need to run the onboarding script, and then job done. Okay, not too complicated. And there is a trick in here. If you are onboarding clients, Windows 10 and Windows 11, I will talk about the migration in a few seconds, is the system is intelligent enough from the following point of view. If there is an AV already running, like my project, SEP, Symantec is already running. By the time I onboard a server, Windows 10 or Windows 11, the system will detect another AV running in active mode, and Defender for Endpoint runs as a passive. Okay, it means all the EDR is still there, all the threat and vulnerability is still there, and things like that. But the AV is in passive. It means it doesn't block anything, it doesn't take any remediation because there is another AV. By the time we remove the third-party AV, in this case Symantec, and then again Defender for Endpoint is intelligent enough to detect the AV is gone, and then automatically Defender for Endpoint becomes active. You don't need to do anything. When I tested that on servers, it didn't work like that. Initially, I found some Microsoft documentation saying 2012 and 2016, we need to do this transition manually, but 2019 should behave as a Windows 10, Windows 11 to identify and become passive and active automatically. But when I did the POC or all the testing didn't work, and then I had to build the onboarding process on that. It's not too complicated. There is a registry key we can inject via grow policy, but to keep the story short, yeah, here is what I need to do. Just add that registry key, force Defender passive. Then part of my onboarding, first I inject the registry key to make sure the Defender, when installed, becomes passive. The registry key is there, and then I do the onboarding. By the time Defender for Endpoint starts, thanks to the registry key, it becomes passive. And then I do, all the assessment when the time is right, and then we basically remove the AV and change to active. If you are wondering what could be the problem in having two AV running in active, of course, they will fight each other. First, you need to exclude, let's say, go to Defender for Endpoint, create an exclusion for SEP or for McAfee or whatever is the tool, and from the third-party AV, do the exclusion as well. But there's no, and probably, or I'm sure, there will be a high CPU consumption as well. This is why you need to minimize the time in having those AV running as active at the same time. Just do the switch in the right time. Okay, I fully tested that, and yeah, it works. Unfortunately, it's not automatically. This is why you need to build your process to kind of start as a passive when the time is right, change it active, and then remove the AV to avoid any security gap, okay, from there. Another thing you can benefit is, I'm not sure if you came across Defender for Cloud. Okay, Defender for Cloud is, I have a screen here to share, is the kind of, the bird view where we can go much beyond the Defender for Endpoint when it comes to, to do the security assessment and to point out what are all the security components we should improve. The beauty of that is from the Defender for Cloud, as you can see in here, Defender for Cloud, there are different components. Under Defender for Cloud, there are Defender for Servers, Defender for Containers, Defender for oh my goodness, SQL Server or database, and yeah, there are. I will show you now a bunch of variation for Defender. One of them is the Defender for Servers. Okay, please don't get confused. Defender for, let's say, the Defender for Servers is part or is a subcomponent of the Defender for Cloud. The beauty of that is when you enable Defender for Servers, as you can see in here, we can enable the auto onboarding. If I go to the endpoint protection and enable that option, what's happening is the following. By the time you have a server register into the Defender for Cloud, the Defender for Server will auto onboard that server into Defender for Endpoint. It means these steps in here, I don't need to do because Defender for Cloud will do for me. I tested, and even the installation package, the MSI, is fully injected automatically. Let me show you, just to give you a better understanding. If I go back to here, okay, this is my, as you can see, Defender for Cloud. And the Defender for Cloud, as I told you, give a nice bird view of all my Azure components. As you can see in here, I have some Logic Apps application. I have here my subnets. I have, a bunch of things. I have one of my devices in here, Windows 1030 is a device running on Azure. And now if I click on there is a really nice report, as you can see, of, beyond Defender for Endpoint, some other information we can get in regards to this device running on Azure. For example, oh yeah, the device is running in a VLAN, and the VLAN, there is no firewall, there is no firewall group assigned to that, okay? But the beauty is I can have those devices auto onboarding on Defender for Endpoint as well, okay, on top of Defender for Cloud. To do that, what I need to do is from Defender for Cloud, if I go over the environment settings, click in there. Here, I would see all my subscription. I have a single. If I click in there, now, yeah, this will give you a better understanding. Okay, when my memory stopped a few minutes ago, okay, these are the plans in Defender for Cloud. As you can see, Defender for Servers, App Serves, Databases, Storage, Container, all of these guys in here. Of course, nothing is for free. Now, if I go and click on Settings, And then I have the option in here to, by default, is on. Okay, if I just leave in there, yeah, that's brilliant. Now, any server I have registered into the Defender for Cloud would be auto onboarded into my Defender for Endpoint. I don't need to do anything. Okay, that will be automatically. I tested that and I'm implementing that actually at the moment on my project, and I've done a couple of tests, and so far is looking okay, really good. Anyway, just one more option for you in terms of doing the onboarding. There are different methods and not listed in here. You can take advantage from Defender for Cloud as well. Some of the key settings, again, this is based 100% on real life experience. The first and second is a must, okay, 100%. The allow real-time monitoring, this is the AV, and allow behavior monitoring, this is the EDR. Okay, of course, unless I haven't come across, but if you are running a third-party EDR and you want to benefit from Defender for Endpoint, you could eventually, disable the EDR until you get rid of the third-party EDR. Otherwise, again, you could have a high CPU utilization and so on. But in a normal migration, yeah, 100%, we should have those two enables. Another one that's a little bit tricky, and you always need to talk to your client, or if you are implementing on your own organization, talk to the high management to see, to agree how much information, or that's the wrong way to say, what type of files you want Defender for Endpoint to send to Microsoft automatically for deep dive analysis. Okay, it means if we select save all. Oh yeah, if I select all sample, it means if there is a bad Word file with an injected macro, in that Word, Microsoft, if needed, will get that Word, Excel, Access, a database, anything, and send to Microsoft to do a deep dive analysis. But of course, some clients, they will be very concerned because those files could contain some very sensitive company information, and they don't want those files to ever leave the organization. This is why this option could be a really bad one. Okay, better than that would be this one here. If I set send save sample means only exe file, .com file, VBS, PowerShell scripts, and scripts in general, but not user data, no Word, Excel, SQL Server database. Those files, they will never be sent. Of course, if needed, we can send manually. Okay, if we need to do a deep dive analysis on those files, we can send manually. But at least I don't want the Defender to send those things. And again, there is no right and wrong, but you need to talk to your managers or to the client to see what's the best option. I will skip that one for a second. Yeah, the PUA, not sure if you came across, is the potentially unwanted application. That, would be usually yes, or 99% yes, enable, because if anyone try to install those dodgy applications like BitTorrent, to do those massive download and stuff, that will be blocked straight away. Okay, and then, yeah, usually that's a very simple decision. Another one, you can talk to your client and, to make the right decision is regards how Defender for Endpoint should act if a high severity alert is created, a high threat was detected, or a severe threat, or a moderate or low. Okay, of course, for high and severe, if I have a good memory, Defender for Endpoint will block and will delete that, that file straight away. But when you are implementing, especially, the company could be saying, oh, but how about if a good application gets blocked and then totally deleted, and then eventually we don't have backup, or there is a problem, backup could be a headache. And then what you can do is just downgrade those options to say, what, for the first, I don't know, half year, first 3 months, let's set everything to quarantine. If there is a low level threat or a high or severe or whatever is the threat, Microsoft will block and then we'll quarantine. Eventually, if there is a bad, not likely, to be honest, but if there is a bad application that somehow was blocked, it went to the quarantine. And then we can, easily enough, of course, do the assessment and reverse, bring back that application. Okay, that could be something, interesting as well. Otherwise, you keep the default and see what's happened. But if the client, or let's say your organization, is a little bit concerned, you want to play safe, I would advise that's a good option. Set everything as a quarantine initially, and then maybe, I don't know, 3-6 months later, you are confident no good application was ever blocked. Okay, then you could revert the configuration. When it comes to the AV updates, what's the source? You want to get that from file share, you want to get that internally from your WSUS, or maybe just bring straight from the internet. For enterprise, with thousands of servers, to avoid overkilling the link, the best configuration would be to set initially to get the updates from a local source. If that local source is not working, and then bring from the internet as a kind of redundant option. And then the ASR, those 16 rules are always important for us to enable, again, to reduce the surface where the bad actors can get in. Huge discussion in here, guys, in regards, should you run a full scan or quick scan? Looks very simple, but again, can be a bit, complex. Microsoft is saying if you have especially everything enabled, okay, real-time AV protection, EDR, the PUA, and you have all of those controls enabled, there is no need anymore for you to run full scan, because it's time consuming, and so on and so on. Anyway, we have a big discussion with Microsoft, and then eventually we decided, between different overview from Microsoft, we decided, and Microsoft eventually provide that, a full scan is a good idea, at least when you do the onboarding. Okay, it means even if there is a third-party AV, when you do the migration, remove the third-party AV, run a full scan to make sure Defender for Endpoint goes to every single file, every single register key, and if there is anything dodgy, anything that maybe was not blocked or not recognized by the third-party tool, at least Defender for Endpoint will do that straight away and will block. And believe it or not, on my experience when migrating from SEP, every time when you do the migration and run a full scan, especially on file servers with thousands of files, we always get some, 10, maybe 5, maybe 3 different alerts. So far, all the alerts coming from a full scan are good news, informational or low level. Okay, I've never seen anything that is slipped away from SEP in Microsoft catched that was more than low level. This is why I'm really happy with the decision. Do the onboarding, run a full scan, and then after that, you can set the server to run a quick scan. I don't know, once every every day, maybe 2-3 a.m. because the quick scan is like 3-4 minutes, just to investigate the core files. Okay, that's I would say I would recommend that best practice. Okay, the thing is, of course, you need to, to decide from where you want to push this, you want to deliver this configuration to your devices. And then here are the options. There are too many, sometimes, people get confused. Very new from last month, we can finally now push those policies via security portal. I can do that via MEM, or the Microsoft Endpoint Manager, via Intune, Grow Policy, Configuration Manager, Tenant Attached, and so on. Just to give you a quick overview, if I go back to my portal, okay, security.microsoft.com, and then in here, Where's the option? Oh yeah, here. Okay, endpoint security policy. Okay, brand new from last month. Finally, is here because all the clients around the world, they were not happy to have different portals, to do different things. And then as you can see, here's a place where I can click, create a new policy, sorry, and then I can, as you can see, brand new as well. Finally, we can create policy, AV policy for Linux, for Mac from the single place, or in my case, Windows Server and Windows 10, 11. Here I pick whatever the policy I want to create, AV, the ASR, and the Windows, the interface experience and the exclusions, and then next, and create. Anyway, now when it's created, just to show you, if I click on the AV policy, just to buy a bit of time, I already created. Really nice interface, I really kind of, like. Straight away I can see how many servers that configuration was applied. If I click on apply devices, now I have a clear understanding, what are the devices and when was the last check-in, and where, if that was successfully delivered or we got, some troubles, we can investigate what's the trouble. I can now, when I go to the device, I can force a synchronization, because otherwise the policy works on cycles of 90 minutes to kind of push the new configuration. If I click on the device and force a synchronization, I can shrink that from 90 minutes to 10 minutes. That's a good thing. Here, of course, I'll assign the groups and so on. Yeah, I'm really happy now to see. Before it was all over the place. Now finally we have all the policies in a single interface with a nice way to see how that has been delivered. Really happy. Talking about Linux, because before we didn't have any option to deliver AV or to deliver any policy using Microsoft tools. And then this is why, the Linux guys had to deploy a JSON file, just a text file on every single device. Manually, or of course they could use any of the Linux automation. If you guys are Linux guys, you know what I'm talking about, using Ansible or Chef and so on to build the automation to deploy whatever the configuration. But now again, from July, we have the option to deploy whatever are these options now via Graph User Interface using the security portal. Okay, great. I think I don't have anything else to explain. When it comes to the migration process, here are all the steps. But very important is, and then another important tip I can give you is the following. When you do the onboarding, it can take up to, maybe let me just go back to here. It can take up to 24 hours in order for all the information, the telemetry, to be fully populated. If there is any missing patch, what are the security recommendations, what are the software inventory and so on. It can take up to 24 hours. This is why we decided, and is working really well on my project, we are doing the onboarding in a 2 days approach. Day one, we do the onboarding, we set the device as a passive, we install the client and do the onboarding, and then we wait at least 24 hours to have everything synchronized, make sure all the AV updates are deployed, make sure all the telemetry is fully updated, and then on the second day we do the switch. We turn as active, and then we remove the SEP. In this case, SEP requires a restart, and then we restart the server, and then at the night we run a full scan, and then on the third day, job done, fully successful, and no stress. And we are doing, of course, the checks to make sure we don't for example, we don't remove SEP until the Defender for Endpoint is fully sync and is fully updated when it comes to the local AV definitions and so on. And it's working really, really nice. And here's the process, in the kind of more structured way. But please remember, when it comes to to Windows Server 2012, 2016, and I saw on 2019 as well, you need to do the switch between passive and active or vice versa manually, okay, manipulating the registry key. Okay, and then finally, just about, let me share some other, important considerations as well. When you are deploying servers, okay, make sure you understand exactly what is, the environment you are stepping in, because you will come across different servers. And I would say I wouldn't advise to try to onboard any server older than 2012, okay, because then it's is not fully supported, to be honest. Server 2012, anything beyond, having good experience. Make sure what's the priority onboarding, because, maybe some servers, they have no AV, and then, you should, of course, onboard those servers first. And then, you need to understand as well all the environment. You might have servers on-prem, servers on Azure, servers on the DMZ, servers on the DMZ in Azure, on Azure, but a DMZ in there. And then DMZ is more headache because the servers are really locked down when it comes to communication and access and the way you can run anything on that server. And usually these guys here, depends the organization, okay, requires much more time for you to be able to do the onboarding and make the changes you really need. I already explained. I've been following a 24 hours, let's say a 2 days onboarding process, doing all the active passive manually, doing all the pre-checks. We don't onboard any server unless we can guarantee the grow policy settings for MDE have been deployed on that server. We don't do the onboarding unless the server has, minimum 2 CPUs, a bunch of pre-checks we do. On the client is a great opportunity for you to review the roles and responsibilities, because especially if the client is a kind of big enough client and there is a team looking after the threat and vulnerability using one product. Another team is looking after the EDR with another product. Another guys are looking the AV with another product, and so on. And now with the Defender for Endpoint, we have everything in a single place, in a single interface. Of course, you need to bring all those teams, together, and sometimes, reassign whatever the roles they have, and so on. But again, is a great opportunity to kind of review the internal process and how those teams are talking to each other. Again, if the company is kind of, big enough, maybe they want to split the responsibility to have a team looking after the servers when it comes to the MDE and another team looking after the workstations, Windows 10, Windows 11. The good thing is under the MDE permissions, we can do that. We create, 2 or more groups, and then we say, oh yeah, SOC team 1, okay, only can take any action, for example, isolate a device if a device is servers. And then another team look after the workstations, Windows 10, Windows 11. The schedule, kind of already, explain as well. Of course, to onboard a server is not the same as onboard a client. A couple of best practices I've been using is never onboard a server if there is any kind of problem. If the guys are already complaining about, I don't know, high CPU utilization, if the guys are troubleshooting something, don't onboard that server because it will be more, headache. Never combine restarts, because the team could say, oh yeah, now on the Tuesday patch we need to restart the server anyway. Why not to combine the server restart with the Tuesday patch? I wouldn't advise to do to do that. Do the patch first and then do the onboarding, or vice versa. By the way, you don't need to restart a server when you do the onboarding. In my case, I need to restart the server when removing SEP. Okay, but if there is a other third-party AV that eventually doesn't require a restart, maybe you don't need to restart. In my case, yes, and we are not combining the restart with any other restart, any other kind of troubleshooting restart, because again, I don't want headache. Firewall and proxy, yeah, again, especially for the DMZ servers because they are usually ultra protected, and then make sure you can get the documentation from Microsoft. You need to make sure every single device can connect the Microsoft data centers with a specific range of URLs in order for for the server to send all the telemetry and to allow the portal eventually to inject, for example, isolation. That can be done via firewall rules or via proxy. Again, based on my experience, proxy usually is a headache. Okay, if you can get the configuration done in a firewall, maybe in a day or 2 days, or in a very complex environment in a week, my goodness, proxy could be maybe 3 or 4 times that time. Okay, it's possible to do. There are some registry keys, but it's much more complex to implement, to allow the devices to reach Microsoft via proxy, talk about MDE, than firewall. Very important to do a performance analysis as well, especially for critical servers, because by the time you install Defender for Endpoint, if eventually a server by coincidence starts having a CPU spike or something like that, everybody will point the fingers, to you. Then it's important, before do anything, get a nice performance tool to measure memory, CPU utilization. Yeah, these are the big ones, disk as well, but basically memory and so on. And then by the time you install Defender, you already know what's the benchmark. And to be honest, if eventually there is any CPU problem, as I got before, so far not too many. One server in particular was a DevOps server where the Defender for Endpoint, the Defender engine was taking between 40 to 50% of CPU utilization, pretty much all the time. And then after an analysis, we identify some missing exclusions. There were some really heavy processes running on that server, and because we didn't do nobody told us to do the exclusions, of course, every time those heavy processes they were running, Microsoft, thanks to the EDR and the AV, they had to keep monitoring a well-known and safe process. By the time we made exclusions, and then eventually the CPU came down to whatever 2%, 5%. That's anything based on Microsoft, anything below 10%, is okay. And initially, loads of discussion about if we should go for a full scan or quick scan. I'm happy with the decision. I already told you, do the migration, get rid of the third-party AV, run a full scan. Can be time consuming, but run a full scan to, as a peace of mind. Talking about time consumption, you won't find that information on the internet. Again, this is real life experience. If you have a server with a single or two vCPUs, guaranteed, all the servers I have onboarded, when you start a full scan, the CPU goes straight to 100%. If you have 4 CPUs, and then it goes, maybe I could say between 90 to 100%, 98, 95, 100%, and so on. If you have 8 CPUs, on my, again, day-to-day real-life experience, it comes down to around 50%, 12 CPUs, 25%, and the maximum powerful server I onboarded, only 5%. It means if you are running the full scan, especially for file servers, heavy file servers, it can go, make sure you have the amount of CPUs. We speed up the scan. Okay, I came across loads of file servers with only 2 CPUs, and then what you could do is maybe just add a few more CPUs to play safe if you can. 8 CPUs, do the onboarding, run a full scan, and then later on downgrade the servers for less CPU. Yeah, that's pretty much it, what I wanted to share. I know we are over a few minutes, just in terms of server hardening as I told you before, Microsoft will give you kind of, all the recommendations you need to improve. This is a terrible exposure score. This is just my lab, to improve the exposure score and improve the security score. And this is absolutely brilliant because you can see in a kind of daily basis where you are, or where your tenant stands when it comes to all the security configuration you need to do. Anyway, hopefully I didn't drive you guys crazy with the amount of information, but yeah, I still have a few minutes available. And thanks very much for be connected for this last hour with me.